Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Brian Burke. Thanks for being on the show again, Brian.
Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, I'm always honored to have Brian on. As most of you know, he's been on the show numerous times now, and we've talked about different topics. And there's a few more topics we really want to dive into with Brian, just from his experience. Well over 2,000 doors. He's acquired over 700 properties. He's extremely experienced, and we're happy to have you on, Brian. And so, maybe give us just a couple-minute update of a couple projects you're working on now, and then let's dive into our topic today.
Well, let's see. We just closed on 539 units here in the last couple of months, so that was a good start to the year. Yeah, a little small deal. That gave us a good start to the year. We're trying to march toward 1,000 units this year. We'll see if that happens, if the market's good to us or not. We won't force it if it's not, but we've got another 176 units in contract, so we're still cooking. We'll find some more stuff to ruffle up here soon.
Nice. No, that's awesome to hear. 539 units. That's a project there. Wow.
It's a good start. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it was two properties next door to each other. We're going to run as one, so it's going to be a big oil tanker. That's a big property.
Nice. So, well, obviously, we're going to talk about sourcing deals and how you've done that, how it's evolved over your career and things like that, and dive in. But, maybe get us started on how you found those deals, and then let's dive into the details.
Yeah, this one was interesting. Our hit rate on marketed deals is about as close to zero as you can get. But this one that actually worked out. It was interesting because two different brokers listed two adjoining properties for sale from two different sellers at roughly the same time. And it just so happened we managed to get both of them. And I think in part, it was because, we leveraged one off the other and said, hey, we're going to be more motivated to close than any other buyer because we're also trying to buy the deal next door. And when we get the deal next door, then we could go to the other one and say, we're going to be more motivated to close than any other buyer because we have the other one next door in contract. And so that really helped us get the second one. And it wasn't the easiest battle because, it goes, of course, into the multiple final rounds and all that sort of stuff. And we weren't originally picked, and we weren't the highest offer. And so we had to, really do some convincing that we were going to be the right ones to actually get the thing done. So a lot of work, a lot of back and forth with the brokers and sellers, but we managed to get there.
Wow. So, so sourcing those deals, obviously you had relationships with these brokers, right? But you said your own market, what would you say? The properties that you see that are own market that you're purchasing is like zero.
Yeah. Our hit rate on marketed deals is very near zero. There's a lot of competition out there for acquiring multifamily assets, as you well know, and everybody that's listened to this show, I'm sure knows that it's a competitive landscape out there. And really the one thing that gives any buyer a leg up in sourcing deals is a track record with the broker. And fortunately, we had track records with both of these brokers. They both knew us. We closed with one of them before. With another one we hadn't closed with yet, but of course they knew that we owned over 1,000 units in the market, and and that sort of stuff. So that went a long way. But normally most of the stuff we buy is off market, but every once in a while we get lucky on a marketed deal. And it's not for lack of trying. I mean, we're underwriting every marketed deal in the markets that we're active in. It's just, we don't usually get them.
Okay. So, I've heard different people talk about, an off market deal and what's a real off market deal. And could you elaborate, just like, broker sends a deal, he says it's off market, but is it really off market? Could you just tell us, walk through that a little bit?
Yeah, I define off market deals in residing in one of three different buckets. There's the off market deal, which is one where someone wants to sell and they call every broker they know, telling them they want to sell and asking for their opinion of the property's value. All the brokers render those opinions and then immediately call, every buyer on their list, trying to round up a buyer so that they can get a leg up on getting the listing by telling the seller, I've got 2 buyers that really want it, so give me the listing or I'll get you the offer beforehand. Or they're trying to get in before the other broker gets the listing, right? So that's off-market deal number 1. There's not much difference between that and a marketed deal because everybody knows about it. There's probably been 30 people on that deal, just as if they would have put it on the market. So that's category number 1. Category number 2 off-market deal is the one where you've got the seller that just is completely overpriced. Every broker is way too embarrassed to take it out to market at the seller's price because they know nobody's going to want to buy it at that price. So they call up their most inexperienced buyers, the ones that have been hounding them and annoying them the most to buy something that no one will sell to. And they'll see if one of those will bite at this quote unquote, off-market great deal. And basically they're just looking for a sucker. That's off-market deal bucket number 2. And in my opinion, it's probably the most common quote unquote off-market deal. And it's certainly the most common one that you'll hear about from anyone that hasn't done a lot of volume. And then the third bucket of off-market deal is the one where the seller says to a broker, hey, you sold me this deal. I want you to sell it for me. I really don't want to spook my employees and have this thing sitting on the market, having 20 tours. Just get me an offer from your top buyer. And that broker will call 1, 2, or 3 of their, most reliable buyers and offer them the chance to buy it without it going on the market. Those are the kind of off-market deals we're looking for.
Okay. No, that's awesome. Yeah, we don't want to be in those first 2 categories, especially the second one, right? As a buyer.
Right.
No doubt about it. But as far as, these deals that, the seller, you said the seller, he bought this deal from this broker. And so he's going to use him again and he wants him to sell it. Doesn't want to spook the employees. So it's just, see if you can sell it for me or see what interest you can get. How are you, how does that start? Obviously you're starting that relationship, right? And could you walk us through that a little bit and how that has happened for you or maybe even how that's changed over your career?
So are you asking how does that broker get that phone call or how do you as a buyer get that phone call from the broker?
That's right. You as the buyer. Yeah. As the buyer getting that phone call from the broker. What gets you to that point?
Closing deals. That's the only thing that gets you there. That broker is not going to call you. And I repeat, that broker is not going to call you with that category 3 off-market deal unless they've sold you something before. Because what this seller is asking the broker to do, think about this for a minute from the other side of the table. What that seller is asking the broker to do is bring me an offer from a reliable buyer, someone that you can vouch for that's going to get this deal done and is going to close and not give me a lot of hassle. Well, the only way that broker is going to put that relationship with that buyer or with that seller at risk on their word of who a good buyer is for that deal is if they know that buyer really well and have closed deals with them before. And they know how they act in a transaction. They know their closers. They know they don't screw around. They know they don't retrade and nitpick over stupid little repair items. If you've been able to close with a broker and show them all those things, you can make it to that list. Another piece of it is, what do you own in the market? If it's your first or second deal in the market, and they have a client that owns 2,000 units in the market, it's more likely they're going to call the guy with 2,000 units than the guy that has, 1 property or perhaps no properties. So, everybody always asks, how do you get deals? You get deals by closing deals. And now you have this ridiculous chicken and the egg scenario about how do you get deals to close deals or how do you close deals?
Where I'm going.
Deals if you don't have deals. I know. I've lived it. I know exactly where you're going.
So what do we do then? What's your suggestion?
Well, it's tricky and, it takes a lot of time. Here's a great example. I wanted to expand into a new market. And this was a few years ago, and I had closed a bunch of stuff in another market. And, I wanted to get into this new market, and, I was calling on deals that were on the market. And I mean, brokers would give me the time of day, and it's like, look, I own over 1,000 units. And it's like, I still couldn't get them to return my phone calls. Finally, one of the brokers just random calls me on this deal that I had. I'd been calling this firm. I think I left like 4 messages for one of the brokers on this deal. And then randomly another broker on the deal calls me, because, usually there's like 2 or 3 guys on, or on every brokers on every listing. One of the other ones calls me, and he's like, yeah, just trying to see if you're interested. And I said, I'm interested enough that, I left like 3 messages for so-and-so. And he's like, oh, dang that guy, and he's like, I checked you out. I looked in our company database, and I found that you closed some deals over in this other city. And, I talked to that broker, and, he had some good things to say about you. So I wanted to see, what your level of interest was. And literally getting the respect of this broker that didn't know me from Adam really came from him talking to somebody in another office in another city, but with the same brokerage. And that's what, got him to take my call. So closing deals means, it doesn't even have to be in that same market. You can leverage properties you own in other markets. So if you own somewhere else, and you can get that broker to, get in touch with the brokers in the market where you're looking to go, it can at least help you. It puts one foot forward. But man, I mean, even if it means buying a property you otherwise wouldn't buy, like for example, I wanted to get into Dallas, and it was really tough. And this was, I don't know, 10 or 12, 15 years ago. And I bought a 60 unit deal there, which, nowadays I wouldn't touch a 60 unit deal with a 10-foot pole, but it was just, I had to buy something just to own something in that market. Otherwise I would never have gotten anywhere. So, if it means going and buying a duplex and saying like, hey, I own a duplex in this market, I'm looking to, get to bigger properties, at least you own something, and you're not just some guy from halfway across the country that's never even been there, doesn't own anything there. So it's baby steps, and it's difficult, and it takes time, and it takes work, and it's not just, oh, hey, I'll buy you a cup of coffee kind of thing. It doesn't work that way.
Interesting. That's what I hear though too. It's like, take them out to coffee, get to know them, but you got to close deals, right? You got to see that you're serious anyway. I guess there's too many tire kickers, right? That they don't know if you're serious, like you say.
Way too. I mean, brokers aren't thirsty. They don't need a cup of coffee. They want to close deals. It's like, that's what they want to do, and that's the only way you're going to get their attention. Is to show them how you act in a transaction, which is difficult, as we just, talked about, because there is a chicken and the egg scenario, and it's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right?
That's right. And so what about, are all deals that you're doing through a broker, or are you also finding directly from a seller, or are there other ways?
Man, 99% come through brokers. Yeah, 99%. It might be one thing to find an unsophisticated single family landlord that wants to sell their house and responds to your yellow letter or postcard or what have you. You can send out 10,000 of those letters and get 1 or 2 guys to respond to you. But when you're looking at 100, 200, 300, 500 unit apartment complexes, these owners are sophisticated. They've been through the drill. It's a good chance they've been through all the trials and tribulations that you're going through to become a buyer to begin with. And, they're not just going to respond to your yellow letter or postcard. What they do is they talk to brokers, because they're buyers, they're sellers. They get calls from brokers all the time going, oh, hey, what are you going to do with Marvin Gardens? Thinking of putting it on the market anytime soon? And then they say something like, oh, I just refinanced it. We got 1 or 2 years left on our loan. Then we're going to put it on the market. What do you think is happening in the background? The broker's typing that into their computer, loan due in 2 years. So he's going to call that guy up when he's got 10 months left on his loan and say, hey, so the brokers know who's poised to sell. And they know the phone number and the email address of all the owners, and they've got a great network, and anybody else doesn't have that.
Nice. How many brokers at one time are you communicating with, or staying top of mind with, or are you?
Everyone, every one of them, every broker in every market, we will be talking to them on a regular basis. And usually it's because we're talking about deals. I mean, look, we're in Georgia, Florida, Carolinas, Arizona. There's deals coming out of there all the time, right? By these brokerage shops. We're dealing with brokers that are, there's any given market is going to have, a core group of brokers that sell 90% of the product out of that market. They always have something out there, and they're saying we're always just calling them up and, hey, what's going on with this or that, and we're talking to them all the time. Here's a funny story. I'll give you a good one. I called one of our brokers the other day and I said, look, only reason I'm calling you is to make you money. And of course, he immediately responds with, okay, you have my attention, right? I said, we've got this property. I said, we're going to want to sell it probably within the next year. I said, but right now it's the only asset we own in that market. I said, I cannot sell it and exit my physical presence in this market. I said, so if you want to sell this deal for me, you have to bring me 2 off-market deals that I can buy, and then you can sell this and you'll make 3 commissions. 2 days later, he calls me up and he goes, I've got 2 off-market deals for you.
Wow. I love that.
So that's how it works.
Wow. So are these 2 that you're going to be able to pursue, you think, or you are pursuing?
We are pursuing them, and we will be putting offers on them. Whether or not we get them, I don't know. We'll see. But it's promising. It's promising.
Wow. I love that take on it. The only reason I'm calling you is to make you money, and to sell this property, you need to bring me another one. Yeah. So he's thinking dollar signs, right?
He's thinking, yeah. I mean, these 2 deals, if we get them, it's over $100 million. So that's a big commission.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus selling. Yeah. Awesome. So, so you're connecting with as many as possible. Tell me, like, that routine, is it like a weekly thing? Is it every other week? Is this just something you keep in your CRM? So, hey, we need to call John in Georgia, we hadn't talked to him in 2 weeks, or how do you track that?
No, we don't track it. And we aren't calling them just to say hello. Right. We're calling them because we're talking about a deal. We're going to call them on one of their listings. We're going to call and see how the offers are going. We're going to call and, find out what the call for offer date is. There's probably 2 or 3 different variety of touch points, during a listing cycle, and brokers always have something that's out. So there's always a deal to talk about. We're going to call and get more information. We're going to talk about the rental comps. We're going to schedule a tour. We're going to see them in person when we go out there and tour. We might spend the whole day with them. I think, what was it, week before last, my chief investment officer looked at, I think it was 12 subject properties in 2 or 3 states, with probably 6 different brokers, spending a half a day to a full day with each of them. So it's just constant touch points.
Wow. And are you doing anything extra out of the ordinary for brokers, like specific brokers, or personally for them, or whatever it may be?
Like buying them baseball game tickets and stuff like that. And no, we probably should, but we don't. Instead, what we do is we buy real estate, which gets them commissions, and we don't give them a bunch of hassle when we're in the escrow process. I tell brokers, this is what I do special for brokers. I say, look, when I write you this offer and you're going to call me and tell me the offer is accepted. The next time you hear from me is going to be when I say we're closing tomorrow. So in between those 2 times, I'm not going to be hounding you for all kinds of stupid stuff. If the lender needs something, sure, I'm going to have to ask for it and get it. But we're going to have all of our stuff lined up. We're not going to be, a pain in the ass. We're just going to get this deal done and leave you alone. And brokers appreciate that because they have a lot to do. So that's the one special thing we do, I guess, is try to make their job easy. We probably should buy them baseball game tickets while we're at it, I guess.
So any other best practices that maybe you see other people doing that are, or anything other people are doing that you're like, oh, wait a minute, why are you all doing that? That broker's never going to sell you all the property other than not having have closed a deal yet or just causing them a lot of trouble. Anything extraordinary that you're doing, I don't know, or you've seen other people do?
I don't. I'm not keeping track really of what other people are doing. I'm running my own race, and kind of everybody else is doing whatever it is that they do. I just know that brokers are busy, and they get a lot of people kicking a lot of tires that go nowhere. And so, if there's anything on the kind of don't do this list, it's don't be a tire kicker. And another thing don't do is don't just write an offer on every deal. If the deal's not your deal, don't write an offer on it, and you see this so often, where, guys they'll write a ridiculously low offer because they can't even get close, thinking that they're going to convince the broker that, it's not worth what they're asking, when everybody else is probably writing offers right near their, whisper price. Don't be that guy. And, and don't feel like you have to write an offer on every single deal, even though you either can't perform, won't perform, or don't really want it, or whatever the case may be.
Are there any other ways that you source deals that we haven't talked about that aren't off market, or what are some other ways that maybe properties, you've purchased properties that wasn't through a broker?
We started a campaign not too long ago, try to go straight to owners by, running a list of every suitable property in an MSA that we were interested in, narrowing that list down, trying to, skip trace the owner to figure out who the decision maker is, reaching out to them and contacting them. We're doing a little bit of that right now. It hasn't produced any fruit yet, but if it does, that's great. Another thing, we've had kind of two other avenues. One is where we've closed on a deal with a group through a broker, and then after the deal closes, they reach out to us and say, hey, we're next quarter we're going to sell this other deal. Would you guys be interested in taking a look at that? And so that's been an avenue for us, and we've of course say yes. Having said that, we haven't closed on anything because they either wanted too much or whatever. Hasn't produced any fruit yet. But that's a great way to go if you connect on one. And then another way is we know some institutional sellers and some larger groups, and even some of my guys have worked for larger institutional owners. And so we also, reach out to guys we know that own 10 or 20, 30,000 units, and we'll, talk to them about what, they're always selling something, so what are your dispositions for next quarter, and can we get an advanced look at them? And, we've had some success in getting that as well. We haven't closed anything through that channel yet, but I think it's just a matter of time.
Okay. So you're finding owners that have 10,000 units or more, and then you're just connecting with them and asking about their dispositions for next quarter, trying to really build that relationship with them, I guess, so they know you're also a serious buyer, just like the broker.
Well, not quite. We're only doing that with groups that we actually have a relationship with.
Okay.
There might be a guy there that we know through some other means, or because a couple of my guys, they work for large institutional groups. And so, of course, it's a small world and people know each other. And,
right.
Maybe there was one, I remember one we looked at and you go, my CFO goes, I trained this guy when he was, so, it's that kind of a relationship, where, they've known each other for 20 years and he can call them up and say, hey man, what are you guys disposing of next quarter? And they'll tell them. Nobody can no unknown guy can just call up an institutional seller and go, oh, I'm just calling for your disposition list. Nobody's going to respond to that. But, if you know someone, you might get it.
So it sounds like, whether we're getting started or whether we have almost, 3,000 units like yourself or more, that brokers are our best way to focus our energy at the moment anyway, until we get to a bigger level at least. But it seems like, we should be focusing on brokers. You said 99% of deals are coming through them.
Yeah. And even when you get big, 99% of your deals will still come through brokers. One way or another. It doesn't mean they're going to be listed and marketed, but they're still going to come through brokers. Brokers are matchmakers, and whether you're, if you're single and mingling and, and you go to the bar, you hope you have a wingman or something that helps make some introductions if that's what you need. I mean, the whole world kind of works that way, no matter what. You want to buy a car, there's a car salesman. I mean, there's always someone that's in the middle of the transaction, and that's how business is done. It's no different here.
Are there any ways that stand out that you've improved this process, either recently or maybe ways, after you were like years in that, okay, a light bulb went off that, okay, this worked a lot better if we do it this way?
The light bulb for me was recognizing and being real with the fact of how important closing deals is. Because when I hadn't closed any deals, of course I want to convince myself that that's irrelevant. And I can demonstrate to brokers that I'm a reliable purchaser and that I've got all these investors or these resources or whatever. And none of that means anything because this is an entirely relationship-driven business. It's funny, I remember when we were really early on in this, a partner of mine was career single family guy, home builder, always done single family. And, in the single family space, everything's done on MLS, right? You list a house in the MLS, buyer comes along, sees their broker, whatever, sees the MLS listing, you submit an offer. If you're the best offer, it gets accepted. The only thing that matters is the quality of your offer. But the multifamily world is so different. I remember one time he came to me and he goes, "Why is there no MLS for multifamily? How are we supposed to find all these deals if there's no MLS for us to go to know what's for sale?" And I didn't have a great answer. I was just like, well, I don't know. It's how stuff is done. It's bigger, large multifamily. Maybe it's a smaller world. I don't really know. But now after doing this for 30 years, I know what the answer is. The answer is that this is 100% relationship business. That's why stuff isn't on an MLS, because brokers don't want to just sell to anybody that submits an offer. They want to submit to someone they know and can rely upon and isn't going to be a pain. And the only way that they get that is with a relationship of some form. So I really underestimated the importance of relationships early on and wanted to refuse to accept it. So what have I refined? I've refined that that's not true. The relationships are everything.
Wow. That is the difference between, $100 million or even $20 million deal versus a $200,000 home, isn't it? That type of realtor or broker, their thought process is going to be very different when you're talking about this size of an opportunity.
Not even similar, night and day.
Right.
Yep.
Well, Brian, we're about out of time, but anything else you'd like to add about sourcing deals before we go?
Geez, that's a great question. I think we pretty well covered it, but I would just say, don't give up. It takes a lot of time. If you're newer in this business, it will take a lot of time to get quality deal flow. And usually when the quality deal flow starts to roll in is right after you gave up. And so don't check out too soon, because you might be inches away from exactly where you're trying to head.
Great advice. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you.
Best way is through our company website, praxcap.com. It's praxcap.com, or through biggerpockets.com. I participate on their forums very often. So especially like in the multifamily forum, and so anything related to multifamily, I usually see it. So it's a great way to interact.
Wow. Once again, Brian, you've been a great guest. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.